Today, we're diving into all your questions about Biblioplan, the history curriculum that so many of you have been asking about. If you're wondering how to make it work for your multiple kids, or how much literature is included, or even the bare minimum that you need to buy, this video is for you. Before we jump in, make sure to like this video and check out the description. I have a special discount code for Biblioplan that you won't want to miss. Now let's dive into it. Question number one was, how do you do both the high school and elementary school textbook? Do you have your high schooler do theirs independently while you do history with your younger ones and come back together for discussion after? Great question. One of the strengths of Biblioplan is how multi-age friendly it is. So here's how I personally approach it. My high schooler works independently using the companion, the cool history for the cool history for upper middles, and the timeline. So he does that independently. I'm sorry, that's not the timeline. That's the hands-on map. So he does that independently, but I still make time for discussion and deeper analysis together. So a lot of the times you'll find him having deeper discussions about what he learned with either me or his dad. With my younger kiddos, I read them the textbook or play the MP3 of the Remember the Days. And while they are doing that, they are also doing the coloring pages, which keeps them engaged. Now, then after all that, we come all together and we do the discussion guide together as a group. And so that's a way to get both the younger and the older together and get everybody's insights as to what's going on. Sorry, I'm pregnant and winded. After that, we every other week as a co-op, we come together and we do the hands-on activities and crafts and recipes and different things like that as a huge group. Now, this approach gives us that like one room schoolhouse type of feel, while everybody is still learning at their own age appropriate lessons, but then we get the interactions of doing it as a group and learning from each other. Question number two, how much literature do you incorporate? Now, Biblioplan offers amazing literature recommendations, and I love incorporating them into our homeschool. Here's how I approach it. I do one historical fiction or biography per time period for my older child. So there's 6 units. I try to do at least one per unit. Majority of the time it's about 2. I do age appropriate readers for my younger ones that complement the specific unit that we are doing as well. And now I keep these readers available for them to choose either as read alouds for themselves or as independent reading during quiet time, or they'll bring it to mommy and daddy and have us read it. And I also choose one family read aloud per unit. That way we kind of are reading something all together as a family. And we usually do that on car rides or during lunch, different times like that. But you can tailor this based on your child's reading level and interests. But Biblioplan's literature is worth incorporating, and it truly does bring the history to life. I 100% recommend incorporating the literature. So question 3 is, how do you plan to incorporate government and civics into high school? So Biblioplan does touch on government and civics, but if you're looking for a deeper dive, you may want to supplement. Since we're just stepping into high school for the first time, my oldest will be 9th grade next year. So we're not planning to cover government and civics in the first year. And I'll definitely share more. Pregnancy. Can't breathe. I'll definitely share more once we dive into it and figure out exactly what we'll be using. So make sure you stay tuned, make sure you subscribe so that you get that update. Question 4, do you feel the American history in years 3 and 4 will be enough for them? The honest answer, yes. Biblioplan year 3 covers explorers through 1850, and year 4 continues from the Civil War to modern times. When done together, they create a solid history foundation. I love to incorporate literature into this, and that's how I bring in the different perspectives. However, if you have a high schooler who needs to complete a full year of the American history credit, you may need to add additional reading and government studies to meet the requirements. So I would just definitely look into that, and you can always email them and talk to them. They're very open and the customer service is amazing. Question 5, the textbook seems overwhelming. I'm assuming we're talking about Remember the Days, right? So the textbook seems overwhelming. Can I use the Lesson Plans Plus book as a guide to make my own literature-based curriculum without the textbook? Yes, but with some modifications. The lesson plans are great for structuring your week, but the textbook, in my opinion, provides key historical context that just reading literature doesn't always fully explain. If you want a literature-based approach, I would say to use the assigned literature sections as your main source, which you're going to find in the lessons book, and then pair it with some sort of historical timeline book. You can use Story of the World, you can use Usborne, that type of stuff, but all in all, honestly, I would say this serves as the best historical timeline that you would need, but it's important to have that sort of timeline so you're still getting the depth without necessarily being tied to the textbook if you want. That said, I really do recommend the textbook. It's very well written and it has a story-like approach that makes history engaging. So if you're unsure, you can check out the first 3 lessons in a sample on their website to see if it's a good fit for your family. Question 6 says, how do you decide which parts to do when everything seems so good? And I can honestly say that is the homeschool mom struggle, all right? But here's what I do. I believe that you need this Lesson Plans Plus book. That's the foundation, okay? And I honestly think that you need the textbook and that you need the literature aspect is what I would say. What I do is I prioritize the textbook, books, like literature books, and map work for my older child because he is at that high school level. And then I pick 1 or 2 add-on things. So I pick the coloring book and I picked the medieval because I feel like, I picked the coloring book and I picked the hands-on history because I feel like that's kind of like makes it come to life. But they've got notebooking and a bunch of other things. So I would just take a look at what your family's interests are and pick based off of that. So just remember, you don't have to do it all, okay? And you can always add more if you feel like you've got time to add more, okay? But stick with what your family needs and what really works for your family. You can always start with less and add more. Question 7, how many days per week is ideal for this curriculum? It really depends on your homeschool rhythm, but here are some common ways that you can have it set up and some ways that I've done 5 days, a 5-day schedule, which allowed us to do shorter lessons every single day. I've done a 4-day schedule, which is slightly longer days, but leaves a free day for us. And I've done a 3-day schedule, which works honestly for a more relaxed homeschooling because you don't necessarily have to do it every day, but for us, when we did the 3-day schedule, we had to skip a lot of the extras because it was a lot of reading. So currently, we personally do a 4 days a week schedule, and we keep Fridays lighter for projects and catch up and things like that. Question 8, what does Biblioplan look like in terms of workload and prep time?
All right, editing Wendy here. Not sure what happened to question 8, but it got cut off. So what does Biblioplan look like in terms of prep time? Honestly, it's not overly prep heavy, but here's what you can expect. At the start of the year, you're gonna need some time up front to choose the literature and organize your books. You're gonna have to decide, are you gonna keep all the books out and all together? Or are you gonna bring them out per unit as you go on throughout the year? Those different types of decision making, but very simple. On a weekly basis, you're just gonna want to review what the week's plan is and decide if you want to include any of the extras, the extra audiobooks or hands-on activities. So for me, if it's a co-op week, I also like to prep the arts and crafts for that week. And then daily, it's just pretty much open and go with your discussion guide with you and just reading through the textbook. The lesson plans and the discussion guide and the textbook do all the work for you and make it very practical for a busy homeschooling mom.
I'm gonna read question 9 again. Can a 5th grader read the textbook alone? Could I do Story of the World with my 2nd grader? Yes, a 5th grader can read the textbook independently, but they may need some help with comprehension, especially with certain historical concepts. You may want to consider doing the MP3 for them. That way, that pronunciation-wise, they won't have that difficult of a time with some of the names, because even I have a hard time with some of the names. But as for your 2nd grader, using Story of the World alongside Biblioplan is a great option, especially if the main text just seems too heavy for a 2nd grader. I do it with my 2nd grader, but I can understand that. The Lesson Plans Plus already does the work for you, showing you exactly which sections of Story of the World that align with the Biblioplan's textbook, so you don't even have to figure that part out on your own. So question 10, what's the bare minimum I can buy to make Biblioplan work? So if you're on a budget, here is what I would say should be on your essentials list. The textbooks, that is the core of the program. So I would say the textbook, the Lesson Plan Plus, and this is going to include the lesson plans, all the different supplemental things that you can add on, and like how and when to add them on, and the entire literature breakdown along with summaries of the different books and how they go with each specific week. And just because the library is free, I would say at least one literature book per time period, because you can always pick it up from the library. And I feel like it does a good job at making history engaging and making history come alive to incorporate literature into it. Everything else, the discussion guide, the cool history, all of it, the coloring pages, those are extras and optional, but they do help. I hope you feel more confident about using Biblioplan in your homeschool. If you have any other questions, drop them in the comments. I'd be happy to answer them. Or maybe I should do a part 2 of this. If you want to learn even more about Biblioplan, be sure to check out my Biblioplan playlist. And don't forget to check out that discount code in my description. Thank you for watching, and happy homeschool.